Hey there, folks. Welcome back to another episode of Dev by Design. I'm your host, as always, Kathryn Grayson Nanz, and I'm excited to be back with y'all. I was just doing a little bit of traveling this past week. I was at Codestock, which was a lot of fun, but it is nice to be back home in my home office, not in a hotel. And of course, we are back today. Oops, camera reversed. With special guest Medha. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm really good. Today, we are here to talk with you, Medha, and talk a little bit about your career and how you got here and what you do. If you could go ahead and give us a little bit of an introduction.
Hi, guys. I'm Medha. I graduated last May. I'm pretty young, but I do have a degree in computer science and engineering. But when I was in sophomore year, I decided code isn't for me, and that's when I started self-teaching myself design. And I've been teaching myself design for 2 years, and today here I am. I interned for a year last year as UX researcher. And now I work as a UI designer at a startup based out of Chennai, India. And as a designer there, I take care of the design of the app and the website. And the app is live on Play Store as well. And we're currently iterating on new versions of the app.
It's really cool. I really am really interested in talking to you a little bit about your swap from dev to design, because I feel like it's interesting for anyone to have kind of started on one path and then swapped. I went to school for design and then worked as a graphic designer for a few years and eventually kind of felt the allure of coding and did a career swap kind of a few years. For me, it was a little bit a few years after graduation that I started kind of taking code courses and moving over from design into development. But it is so interesting to me to talk to someone who basically did the opposite, who went to school for computer science and then swapped into design. So maybe if you could talk a little bit about what got you thinking that design was the right path for you, and what was the no, go ahead. I was babbling. You know where that was going.
So when I was in sophomore year, there was this event held by Microsoft Student Club at our university, and they conducted a workshop on UI design. And that's when I first started using Figma, and I designed the website. And that's when I knew, okay, this is something that interests me. This is I don't have to spend nights crying, coding. So I did kind of look at my peers. They were all getting internships, tech internships, and I did kind of feel bad because I felt like I was left behind, that I didn't have the right skills, why I wasn't able to teach myself code and all. But I stuck to design, and I totally think it's worth it now. I made a good decision. I also used to design posters and all kinds of stuff for student clubs and all. And I really liked the responses that I was getting from my peers and student club members saying, "Oh, you're really creative. You would be a great designer." And that's what kind of pushed me to become a designer.
I really like that. Just the chance that you got to try it, and it was something that really spoke to you. What got you thinking when you went to school originally with the goal of becoming a developer? What was kind of the thought there? Had you thought about doing design work before then and kind of dismissed it, or just wasn't something you had explored yet?
I never knew UI design or something like that existed until I attended that workshop. My dad's a software engineer, and that's where the idea of software grew. I was like, okay, this seems cool. Let me just try it out. And then when I went to university, I figured out, okay, this is not for me. What did I get myself into? I was already 2 years in. I didn't want to quit. I thought, okay, what can I do that since when I become a UI designer, I can make use of my tech degree. Yes. I can communicate with developers better because I've studied how to code, software engineering, and all that. And I thought, okay, this would be helpful. Let me not drop out of college. Let me stick to my degree, and on the side, teach myself design.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And you're right. You found a really perfect kind of hybrid career that allows you to combine the skills that you got with your degree with the stuff that you're really passionate and excited about doing. That's like incredibly lucky. So just a quick second. Hey, Napalm, welcome back. Hello to folks that are joining in the chat. So when, and this is a question that I get a lot, again, kind of as someone who kind of swapped career paths, what did your process look like trying to find a job out of college with a degree that was a little bit different than what you were applying for?
So at my university, we have placements where the career office would help students get placed at companies, and like my university had tie-ups with some of the companies, and there was hiring going on for an MNC named eClerks. They were hiring only design graduates, but I went to the careers office. I told them I have the skills necessary, but I don't have a design degree. Just let me sit for the interview. If I get selected, then I'd be placed. And that I took the test. I gave an interview. I did better than most of the designers at my university, which was surprising because I was
amazing,
and they had portfolios and all. That was surprising, and like that kind of helped me get my first internship. If it wasn't for my campus placements and all, I would have definitely made use of LinkedIn, because side by side I was freelancing as a writer too, and I got a lot of clients from LinkedIn. So that's where I would have searched for internships if I wouldn't have got one through my university.
Nice. So did you do any formal design study while you were in university, or are you entirely self-taught on the design side?
I only took 2 or 3 courses that too while I was interning, and not before I got my internship. So before I got my internship, all I did was I was reading a lot of Medium articles, looking at YouTube tutorials on how to master Figma, Adobe XD, and all that. I was trying to basically create a portfolio that would help me get a real job after the internship is done. And after the internship, I applied on Angel because I already interned at an MNC. I wanted to be part of some smaller team. So that's why I thought, okay, let me apply for startups for my first actual job. And here I am. I got selected through Angel, and I work at a startup now.
That is amazing. I'm sure if you have any of those resources that you remember using, I'm sure people would be really interested in kind of because that's another question that I get a lot for people that do want to be self-taught designers. What did you mentioned a little bit like YouTube courses and some of that.
Yeah.
So if you could maybe give us a little more detail.
Yeah, I do have a Notion file that I put together, and I released it on Gumroad. I can give kind of like a discount code for all the viewers who are watching this, and people who want to self-teach them design. It has links to all the resources that have helped me become a better designer. I'll drop it in chat at the end.
Yeah, I'm sure people would absolutely love that. I'm glad you have that already.
Yeah, I released it a couple of weeks ago.
Perfect. So what would you say? So you kind of started off as an intern and have somewhat recently moved, right? Ooh, good question in the chat. I'm going to pause the question that I was going to ask. I'm going to use this one instead.
Yeah, this is a great question. I get this a lot, but whatever event I speak at, I always tell them that I prefer startups over MNC. Mostly because at an MNC, I had seniors who took care. I got great mentorship opportunities and all that. So the MNC had its own benefits, but what I didn't have was a say in my design decisions, because the managers were mostly in charge of all the major design decisions, and I was just behind this curtain, and I wasn't getting the recognition that I wanted to get, and that's what kind of pushed me to take ownership. I wanted ownership of the product, and I thought, okay, a smaller team would give me recognition and ownership, and if I don't know stuff, I can figure it out on my own. So I thought it was worth the trade-off of mentorship.
That is totally fair. Oops, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just looking at the chat. So an MNC is a multinational company.
Yep. Someone did throw that out in the chat. So thank you, Ryan, for getting back to fuel on that one. He points out, Inora managers have no say in design decisions. I guess that could be both good and bad.
Yeah, it is good and bad because there's no one taking control of the product. You sometimes need someone telling you, okay, this is right, this is wrong, instead of you having to figure out stuff on your own. But I guess like that's the fun part of the job.
Yeah, I've definitely, when I was working in design focused jobs, there were times when it was really nice to have like a creative director or an art director who I could take things to and be like, what do you think? You know, have you done something like this? It can be really good to have that. But I have also worked in companies where I was creating designs and constantly getting that same kind of pushback from like, usually from the product folks, right? They're like, it needs to have this, or it doesn't have this, or sometimes you just want to be like, please trust me. Like, I promise that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. And like another good thing about working at startups is I made sure like there was someone, some senior or a product manager there. So because I'm early on in my career, I always need guidance, a mentorship because before I like switch to managerial roles and all that.
Yeah. A startup gives a lot of freedom, I think, in terms of what you're creating as well. That was something that I noticed. I've worked at a couple startups and a couple larger, more established companies. And when you're coming into somewhere that's larger and more established, they've usually already got their like brand locked down. They've already got most of their UI stuff figured out. And so you might be creating designs for like new features or new individual pages, but it's really get to do something that's like completely greenfield. Whereas I feel like that's more common with startups. Was that the case with the startup you're working at? Did you get to go from the ground up?
Yeah, so the startup, I was one of the initial designers there. I joined last September. So I was a key member in creating the app, taking it from ground up to like launching, going public. And now it's kind of public, and like we're kind of revamping the whole app to launch to a much wider audience. But like when I was working in an MNC, since I was like huge companies are always these MNCs clients and all. So we already have brand guidelines and all that we have to follow. It's like very restrictive. You have to follow what they say, and there are lots of processes, lots of stuff going on that we don't get a lot of creative freedom there. But like in a startup, when you're building an app, you do have constraints, but when you're starting to build the app, you have a lot of creative freedom and you can take charge of what you're building.
It really is nice. And there's something, there can be some fun challenges in working like within an established system as well. But I think there is something, especially as someone like early in your career, to get to like work on something totally new like that and be able to put that in your book, in your portfolio. That's such a great win. I can totally see why that was really appealing. So are there any, let's see, are there any like challenges or like big problems that you've run into while working on designs at a startup? Because that to me is kind of the other flip side, right? Is that like you trade off a little bit of that like stability and like some of the rules and like the fact that some problems have already been solved and you get to solve them, but also that can be very hard. So yeah, I'm curious what you've been challenged by.
At the startup, there were times when I was given, like I was told to like completely redesign entire like tons of screens, and then like I had no one to turn to. At times I felt like, okay, I need a manager. I need someone who's at a much higher position that can like guide me, tell me if I'm going in the right direction. But like sometimes I'm like, hey, I've got this. Come on, you can do it.
I'm good. Yeah.
I remember who I am, and I'm like, okay, let's keep going.
So at your startup, I assume there's also a team of developers that you work with, or?
Yeah. So there's an Android developer, there are 2 iOS developers, and there are website developers too.
That's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. So you're really, for every design that you're creating, you're kind of thinking about it across 3 different platforms. Can you talk a little bit about your process there and what you've learned in terms of the difficulties of designing for 3 very different kind of operating systems?
So there's a senior designer at a company. So the senior designer kind of took over the website design and all, but like I was given a say in whether it was good, whether there were any improvements needed to be done or anything. So he took ownership, major ownership of the website. I mostly took care of the app, both for Android and iOS versions, and we have a Scrum call every day so that the developers and designers are always on the same page, because there have been incidents in the past where we design something and we forget to update that to the developers, and then they start coding something else. So instead, like to bridge the gap between this communication gap, we thought, okay, having a daily call on where each of the team members stands would kind of help and get everyone on track.
Couple good questions in the chat. So first, how hectic is maintaining that cross-platform consistency? And I'd also maybe follow up with like, what's the biggest difference between designing for iPhone and designing for Android?
So what we do at the current company is I just give them one version of the design, but for iOS there are these system components and all that need to be used, so that the developer takes care of. The Android and iOS designs are like we provide the same screens, we share the same link, but only for the iOS, since they have some components that they require to use, the system components that the developer takes care of. And as it is quite hectic, because I give the Android developer a version of the app, and then the iOS developer is like lagging behind. So that's kind of hard. So like, the 3 of us are almost never on the same page. Like the Android developer would be way ahead of us, and then the iOS developer would be lagging, and that'd be somewhere in between.
Right, because they're 2 completely different teams. I'm sure I hadn't really thought of that. Even if you're on a call every day, they're still working on different projects with different issues and different bugs and different priorities. So what do you do? Is there anything that you found is helpful in like minimizing how hectic that is or trying to solve that problem? Or is it just something you have to push through?
I just message both the developers all throughout the day, ask them, okay, do you need any help? Are you like stuck in something? Do you need any assets that I forgot to export or anything? So just check on them if they're facing issues or anything. And that's about it. Yeah.
So I know you are on the design side very much, but do you happen to know what they're building with?
So the website is built using React, and that's all I know.
Okay. Totally fair.
They were hiring for a React developer, I remember, but like I'm not sure if the opening is still there. But I do remember having a guy on call saying, yeah, we're facing this issue in React and all that.
Yep. Cool. So there you go. That answers that. Our friends in the chat. And then another question about which platform you're working on. I think you mentioned, a follow-up, Figma or Adobe XD.
So we work on Adobe XD. We have the organization license. Mostly because the developer link, the developers are they're used to getting XD links in the previous organizations as well. So we thought, okay, so both me and the senior designer, we're proficient in Figma and XD. But like if the devs are more comfortable with XD links, we thought, okay, why bother them? Like, let's just give them XD links. So we design everything on XD. Only the website design was made on Figma.
Interesting. I hadn't really thought about like kind of splitting it up and like doing some things in Figma and some things in Adobe. I've mostly worked in Figma, so I'm actually not familiar with how Adobe XD looks. I used it many years ago, so I'm sure it's different. But
kind of the same functionality.
You mentioned that you use it because of the links. Is there something, what feature does Adobe XD offer that's really good for like developer exports or developer collaboration?
So XD has this feature where you can just share a design link where no one would be able to download assets or look at the code of each component. And you can also create a developer link. So,
Okay.
so there's a lot of privacy when you just create the design link, because no one can like use that link to obtain code or anything for the components. But like when you create a developer link only, then you'd be able to see the code and all. And there are assets that you can directly export. You can download them from there. Yeah, I guess that's what they like about XD.
No, that does sound really handy. And the chat agrees. Very cool. Awesome. Yep. A big split. I feel like those two are the main like fighters now. I feel like for a long time it was Figma and Sketch. And we heard a lot about like Figma versus Sketch. And I almost never hear about Sketch anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
Me too. So I did learn Figma. Figma was the first design tool that I've used, and I'm really comfortable using Figma. But like since everyone at the company uses XD, I designed XD.
There is a question though, what's your personal pick? Like if you were just working on a website for yourself or an app for yourself, which would you choose?
I personally pick Figma. I can access it on browser. I can like open any laptop I want and like use it. But like Adobe XD, I need to have an app, have an app installed. You need a license for it and all that. Figma is just very easy to use. It's accessible. Yeah.
I agree. I think that's why it's been the like runaway choice for most companies that aren't already purchasing like an Adobe license for something else. That seems to be most of when I hear people using XD, is that when it's like, well, we have to buy Adobe. We need Creative Cloud anyway. Our designers need, Photoshop for Illustrator and design. And then, well, why not? We'll just tack on an XD license. Yeah. Figma is free. Precisely. Everyone agrees. It's nice. Yeah. It's just really easy to use. It's really accessible. I feel like, yeah, there's just less barriers to entry with Figma. So that tends to be my pick as well, but it's nice to hear that like validated from some other designers.
It will always be.
So do you feel like you've had an easier time collaborating with some of the developers on your team because you have that computer science background, or have there been ways in which that served you like specifically in your job, or just kind of general knowledge, do you think?
It has been a little useful because when I look at certain elements or certain things that I design, I think about whether the developers would be able to code it. And if it's not something they would be able to pull off, then I don't do it in the first place. So like that's how it's very helpful because I don't want to push something on them and them feeling bad for like not being able to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that is probably the most common and most frustrating conversation that developers and designers have, is when the designers looking at something and they're like, it is perfect. Why can't you just make it? And developers looking at it
like, output is something very different.
This is actually impossible to me. Like, yep. Focusing on things that are simple to develop, that you can save time, already being on the same page. Absolutely. Normally, I ask this question about if there is anything that you would want to tell developers, like about working with designers or about what they could know to make that collaboration easier. Basically, like something you wish you could tell them so that they could work better with you.
The only thing I would say is communicate a lot with the designer, because there will always be communication gaps on what the designer is expecting, what the product manager is expecting, and like what developers are planning to develop. So by having this talk, it saves them a lot of time, and it saves them it's like they don't have to spend time redeveloping everything again.
Yes.
And there have been times where they started developing without informing us, and then they ended up like kind of changing the whole code and all because we gave them a completely new design. And yeah, I guess like staying updated is the best thing developers and can do.
Yep. Working out that planning. That's a good, this wasn't actually a question. This was technically just a single word, planning, but it did make me curious what your planning phase looks like. You mentioned a little bit those like stand-up meetings that you guys have every morning, that when you're looking ahead at new features that are coming up, what does the planning and like brainstorming process look like?
So we have a tech co-founder at a company, and today morning we had a call. It's 8 p.m. by the way here, so so today morning we had a call with the tech co-founder. So initially we launched an app that was really simple. It was for small and medium business owners who barely understand English because in India. And that's what we released. We kept it really simple. The UX copy was really simple because we needed to keep them basic words so that they would understand. There are people like who struggle with reading and writing in English, and like that's who we developed the app for. But it has got a nice response, and people want more. So we thought, okay, let's revamp the app. Let's switch our user base, because what we thought the people won't understand, they are understanding. And that's where we made a major decision today to revamp the entire app, make it fun, make it interesting for people to look at, and not just boring, plain simple. So we did get we got sketches on how the new app would look like, and today I was working on making the wireframes for them, low-fi wireframes, and I passed them on to the senior designer, and both of us would be collaborating on designing it and showing it to the team tomorrow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting like problem to solve. I was thinking about that while you were talking, this idea of creating an application, creating a UI for, or rather in a language that isn't somebody's primary language. I'm kind of curious how you went about that. Like you mentioned simple wording in the copy, but were there any kind of design things that you did to intentionally like make that a little easier, a little more understandable?
So there were a lot of things we considered. Since these were people who don't basically know a lot of English, we used icons to represent what each of the feature is and what it's for. If it's like take a picture, then we use a camera icon, like very basic to understand. And instead of using illustrations or quirky shapes, we decided to keep human images, because when these small business owners look at them, they trust the app more, because humans they emotionally connect with people, and this is what's important for these small business owners, to trust the app and trust the company. Yeah,
that's really neat. No, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's it.
So are you designing apps in multiple languages, or more specifically English focused, but for non-native English speakers?
Yeah, so we are designing the app in English, but we would be giving it to a company, and they would be in charge of translating the English language to other regional languages. And then whatever content they provide us, we'd be updating it on the app.
Gotcha. I always found designing for multiple languages to be especially tricky. I've only been on that kind of project once where we were handling that kind of like internationalization, but it was a challenge just to think about the layout of words and space and how much room we needed to leave for everything. It was like responsive design turned all the way up to 11, because we weren't just trying to respond around screen sizes, we were responding around the content as well. Are there any like tips or tricks or things that you learned from designing an app in multiple languages?
Right now we only released it in English, so I really can't tell you like how the experience has been. But with after revamping the app, we'll be translating it to other languages, and like only then I'd be able to tell you if.
Gotcha. So this is a fun experience in your future, not one you've had yet.
I'll let you know. I'll let you up.
Well, good luck. We had a good question in the chat. What do you find more frustrating, revamping an existing project or trying to start something from total scratch?
I would say revamping an existing project, because you kind of know what features are already there and you're kind of limited to what you can design. But when you're designing from scratch, you have a lot of creative freedom. You can choose the colors. I mean, not the colors, but like if you don't have brand colors, then you can choose the color palette, what to include, text, shapes, illustrations, and all that. But when you're revamping it, you're constantly building various versions of the app, hoping that the product manager would like it. So yeah, even today while I was revamping the app, I sat down and like I was working on it from morning to evening. It was really frustrating, and I still have a lot more to do.
You hope. Yeah, that idea of having like a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more freedom can be very appealing. That is interesting because that's usually that kind of like revamping work doesn't happen, I feel like, as much in the startup world. So you just got do the short straw maybe on that project.
Yeah.
But I do love though being able to do like a before and after. That's really nice. That I always found to be incredibly rewarding to be able to throw that before and after side by side in my portfolio and be like, but look,
this is what we need.
Right?
Yeah.
So earlier I had asked you my standard question about what would you tell developers, but with your experience, with your knowledge starting off in computer science, I'm also curious to like flip that question around and like, what would you tell your fellow designers who might not have had that same kind of background to help them work more efficiently, more effectively with developers?
I would say people who don't have a tech degree and have a background in design are really very lucky, because they won't have to restrict themselves. Like, since I know stuff, I am very restrictive in what I design because I know what's feasible and what's not. But like coming from a design background, you're actually very lucky because you don't have to think about that. It's really nice, as long as like regardless of whether we have design experience, design education or not. I would say like staying in constant touch with the developers and the product manager would be really beneficial and save a lot of time in the long run.
That's interesting that you kind of call out like not feeling restricted, because I would have thought that would be like a huge perk, is to already know those things and not have to have that frustration of like designing something and then getting it kicked back to you when it doesn't work. Like, at least before I started learning to code, I found that very frustrating because I couldn't understand why they couldn't do it. But your view is almost the opposite. Yeah. Ooh, Kieran, say more about this in the chat. I have not ever, I like this comparison of like an architect civil engineer relationship, but I have no experience or view into that world. So like, say more, Kieran. I'm curious. tell us more about what that looks like. Asking about which tools you use to study. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like Code It Live. That's our channel here for those of you that might be new. So I'm really happy that that's a resource for you. But back to the original question.
So the tools I use to study are mostly, I read a lot of articles on Medium by this UX Collective and like other accounts that publish design articles. I read that. I go to YouTube. I watch people designing, and like when they design, I notice if they use any new features that I might not be aware of, or any new shortcuts that I would be beneficial to learn. And apart from that, I use Figma. Figma has a community where I can like look at a lot of files and how designers are approaching design, and like that's where I study other screens and other designs that people have made.
Nice. Are you talking about the Figma Discord community or something else?
I'm
gonna throw links in the chat is why I'm asking. So
yeah, there's this Figma community.
Let's see. Oh, I see. They're like templates and plugins and all of that.
Figma.com/community.
Community.
Yeah. So it
All
has
right.
UI kits, icons, free icons, and all kinds of stuff that designers might use.
Nice. For those of you that were curious, I have thrown those in the chat. Give me just a second there, Kieran. Opening up your link. Here, I will share my screen briefly so that everyone else can enjoy this meme that Kieran has sent over. It does. So I might not be an architect or civil engineer, but I have felt this feeling before dealing with dev and design.
Okay.
Oh, man. And then, this is an interesting question. I don't know that either of us are like masters of this or know the actual answer, but I bet we can both speculate.
Yeah.
On why Medium is so popular and like.
So I really don't know the reason why Medium is popular, but I make sure I read a lot of articles on it because I sign up for their newsletters, and every day I get them straight to my mailbox, and then that's the first thing I do when I wake up. Like I look at design articles, I look at design trends or interview experiences of other designers. I read them, and they're pretty helpful. I've never thought of writing on Medium, but like I do. There is a monetization feature on Medium as well, but like India isn't supported. Yeah, so maybe in the future I would start writing.
Do you write anywhere else, or have you just not been writing at all yet?
I was a writer for my university blog. I used to cover celebrity events at the university and all that. So I have a few articles published under my name, but they're nothing related to design. They're just lifestyle, college, all this related. Yeah.
Gotcha. I bet you'd be good at it, like writing about design. That is, I would definitely be interested to read what you write. Yeah, Medium is interesting. I do write blog posts. I don't necessarily write on Medium. I just haven't. I'm kind of with you, Fuel, that like it's just a weird place to try and grow an audience, and they've got some strange kind of like paywall-y type features. As on the dev side, I've been lucky enough to find dev too, which is where I really like to write. But if I was writing about design, if I was writing about exclusively design, I'd probably have to look elsewhere. So, food for thought.
I would prefer writing on LinkedIn, bite-sized posts or anything, insights on app features or anything, and like sharing them on LinkedIn because LinkedIn has helped me grow a lot.
That's interesting. You mentioned LinkedIn once before, so maybe you could talk a little bit more about how you've used that platform to kind of grow your career.
Yeah. So before I used to be really active on LinkedIn when I was freelancing as a writer. That's where I got like most of my inbound clients from. I was doing nothing. I was just writing out bite-sized posts on writing about my experiences freelancing, and then that surprisingly people liked, and they were reaching out to me asking me if I would be interested in writing website content for them. And that's kind of how I also wrote UX copy when I was an intern for a lot of the company's clients and all. And at my current job too, I write most of the copy on the website and the apps that I design.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That is a whole different skill set that most people can't even offer. The idea of like copywriting. Usually that's a whole nother person's job.
Yeah.
Talk about startup life. Wearing a whole bunch of hats at once. Ooh, well, now I want to ask questions about copywriting. So for those, I think that experience is not like unusual to end up being the designer or sometimes even the developer and having to fill in copy where a copywriter might not have had time to write something specific. So for people that would not consider themselves copywriters, like myself, do you have any tips for writing UI application copy that is not terrible?
So all of my knowledge is from reading articles, random articles on the internet, and like I would just observe all the apps that I use, about how simple the words that they use are, about why they use certain words in instead of other words. So like there are rules, and like you would only get to know when you try and read them and like try practicing on various designs that you come up with.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good advice, to just kind of like look at what else is doing the same things that your apps are doing, and see what's working and what's not. That's probably good for like literally anything, for design, for development, the whole 9 yards, is to look at what your competitors are doing and see what you can steal and what you can't. So I am curious, for you, a woman of so many talents, what do you see kind of the rest of your career looking like? Are you interested in moving up in design, moving into management? What do you?
So I am looking to get a master's degree.
Nice.
I would be leaving to Canada this August, to the University of Windsor, and I took up Master of Applied Computing mostly because I thought, okay, let me give development one last shot. Because given my design experience, I thought, okay, I can design my own apps and like kind of build them, kind of like get together a team that and try to launch a company or a startup while I'm in university.
So you have really big goals. So just the idea of like moving countries, taking on a whole new master's degree study, and then taking that experience to found your own company. That is incredible.
So like, this was something I wanted to do since I was in 5th grade. We came back from the US, and like that, I just kind of wanted to go back. But like, I thought, okay, let's go to Canada.
Possibly the better call.
No offense.
No. Understood. Do you know what kind of app that you'd like to build? You don't have to share if you don't know. But I was curious if there's a space.
I have nothing in mind right now. As I try and learn, maybe I'll get ideas.
Yeah. Good question in the chat. How do you overcome a designer's block?
When I hit the designer's block, throw my laptop away, but like I just go take a walk, maybe eat something or get tea or coffee, and then I just sit. I watch some random YouTube videos on videos, all kinds of stuff to get my mind off of it. And then when I look at it after a while, I have a fresh approach to what I design. Because what I was designing in frustration might not be the best design, might not be my best output. So when I like take time off away from the screen, when I come back later, I get to know what mistakes I've made. I can come up with better ideas and work with a fresher mind.
Yeah, agreed. I feel like that's good advice. And it's one that we hear a lot in development as well. The idea of like when you're debugging something, like the best debugger is a 5-minute walk. Like you can sit and like trawl through the console, you can run whatever debuggers you've got, you can, rubber duck whatever and like hope that, you can pair with somebody. But 9 times out of 10, just like stepping away and doing something else for even like 5 minutes. Like come back with. Just fresh eyes and a fresh perspective. And I do think it is the same for designer's block. Although I will add, sometimes when I am feeling super stuck on a design and even the like take a break and come back isn't working for me, I like to look through like other designs, like design books and like art history books and stuff, and see if there's something else. Again, I'm a big fan of borrowing and or stealing and seeing what other people are doing. You call it inspiration. Maybe that's
inspiration. Yep, definitely.
So I'll add my 2 cents to that one as well. Well, we are very nearly at the end of our time. We've got about 10 minutes left. Ooh, I'll sneak this one question in. How do you find inspiration?
Yeah. So I look at sites like Dribble, Pinterest a lot. Pinterest is kind of like my go-to site for inspiration. Although I've seen other designers look at awards, and there's also Mobin, where on Mobin they're like screens from real apps. They have their onboarding flow, they have their payment pages and everything. So when I want like real life apps, I look at Mobin, or when I want just inspiration for colors and layouts, I go to Pinterest and Dribble.
I was looking up Dribble to put it in the chat for those who might not be designers and might not be familiar with it. So dropping that over there. Were there any other sites that you mentioned that I might have missed while my internet was on the fritz?
That's okay. I'm dropping the links.
Perfect. So, all right. Ooh. Move that over. I haven't heard of that one.
It has screenshots of real apps that you can use.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm adding that one to my repertoire. And then, yes, Behance is a classic, but a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So for those in the chat who might not have had familiarity with some of the like major design sharing sites, those are some good ones. And Mobbin, which is getting added to my list, which I had never heard of. So I'm glad you said something. Oh man, so oops. I just realized our little branding got lost when I had to redo the page. So there we go. Dev by Design is back. But all right, now we are actually in our last 10 minutes or so. That is a last call for questions. So if anyone has anything that they've been pondering and haven't thrown in the chat yet, now is your chance. Otherwise, Medha, is there anything that you want to share? Is there anything you want to hype? Any of your like accounts or anything? Where can people find you? Just an open call for anything you'd like to share.
I do have a design Instagram page, but like I haven't been really active. I've been on a social media detox, but I just installed it today again. I just installed Instagram again, so people can find me there. I'm dropping links to my LinkedIn and my design account.
Perfect. So folks, if you're looking to connect with Medha, LinkedIn coming in the chat, and her design Instagram, which you can also keep an eye on if you're looking for inspiration. But otherwise, if there aren't any other questions, then I think we go ahead and start wrapping things up. So thank you so much for being on the show. This was a really cool conversation, and I'm really glad that we got to have it.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been really fun. I will definitely do more of these. Confidence I need to do more of these.
Good. I think you should, because I do think you have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think you have a really unique perspective, and I think you have a lot to share. So absolutely, you should do other shows and find other ways to get out there and share that knowledge. And I would totally read whatever you write. So think on that too. Thank you guys all in the chat for hanging out with us. I really appreciate all your comments, all your questions. It made the show a lot more interesting. So I hope to see you again soon. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.